good morning, listeners. And once again, thank you for lending us your ears on this Thursday morning. We've had a request to talk about handling stress effectively. And again, a great topic because we're all suffering from stress to a greater or a lesser degree. And I think there's enough information in the media about the harmful effects stress has on our body and on our psyche. Listeners, from ulcers to high blood pressure, to heart problems, to digestive problems, to more visible things like eczema, asthma. All those things are exacerbated, if not caused by stress. Relationships, of course, is another thing that suffers if you're stressed. Now, there's good stress and there's bad stress. If I'm writing an exam and I'm really stressed about it, that's great. You know you have to do the work, you know you have to prepare yourself, and then you also know there's an end date. So let's say my exam is set for the 21st of June. I know by the evening of the 21st it's over and it's done with, and the stress then starts waiting for the results, I suppose. Or if you're in a business or an occupation where you have deadlines, the end of a financial year, projects that you are working on, we know that there's stress involved. But generally, unless things go really pear-shaped, they're good stress because it's the end of the financial year. It's time to draw up financials and let the authorities have them. But then once that's finished, then it's over. Or if you have a project, the project end date is that time. And let's say for the sake of this discussion that you're on time. Meanwhile, things are stressful to get things done as they need to get done so that the project can be handed over on time. The problem comes in when we feel out of control. And that is really a great contributor to stress. When we are in control, when we can say, look, this is a major project I'm working on, it's really stressful. There are so many moving parts, but I've got my finger on the pulse, I've got my dashboard, and I know who's doing what, where, when, and how. And when things go wrong, we shall deal with them as and when they do. Then you have control, even though it's stressful. The stress happens or is exacerbated when we feel totally out of control. So let's start by saying, recognize the signs, your body's response to stress. Now, it will affect your sleep. Some people, when they stress, they eat. We know the stress eating. Some people don't eat. Myself, if I'm stressed, I can't eat. It sticks in my throat. It's not going down. Other people may increase their alcohol intake. They get depressed. They are short-tempered. They have low energy levels. Those are recognizable signs that you're taking strain, that you're under stress. So how do we cope with it? Before I get into how to cope with it, I just want to make a slight distinction between stress that is work-related and stress that is personal. So let's say in a relationship. So if your relationship is problematic, you're in a relationship and your partner and yourself are not getting on all that great for whatever reason. There's a plethora of reasons that can be. The point is to have that difficult conversation with your partner. At some point, you have to sit down with your partner. And as I have said in the past, paint a picture. Say to your partner, I have noticed that you never want to go shopping with me on a Saturday morning. You always have an excuse. And we used to do that together. And it makes me feel that you want to have time away from me, that you don't particularly want to spend more time than you have to with me. I need you to explain that to me and to make me feel that it's okay for us not to do everything together, and that the reason behind that is simply because you'd like to sit and relax with a book or whatever the case is. Because otherwise, it is going to make the rift between us wider and wider, and it will threaten our relationship. So paint the picture instead of just saying, you never want to go shopping with me anymore, and it just ticks me off, and if that's the way you're going to be, well, then, you can just go and take a jump. So be careful not to let your stress get the better of your common sense. And that is one of the big things in handling stress. Don't let your stress get the better of your common sense. So if it's in a relationship, whatever is causing that, have the conversation. But as I say, paint the picture. And the acronym I use is often O is for observe, see, notice that you are not or that you are. F is for how it makes you feel. That makes me feel unimportant. That makes me feel taken for granted. That makes me feel that you don't want to spend time with me. And then the N is for what I need from you. I need you to explain to me why you're doing it or not doing something. I need you to reassure me that things are fine between us, but that it's something on your side that you are perhaps dealing with and that I can support you in. Because I value our relationship, I love you. Or if it's a friend, obviously I love our friendship and so on. So please, could we talk about what's happening in the relationship? And of course, timing is everything. Don't choose to have this conversation when you can see your partner or your friend is not in the place to have that conversation. Remember, we have spoken about boundaries and we have spoken about being sensitive to timing. And say to the other person, I'd really like to chat to you for half an hour. When would it be convenient for you? When would you be in a good place for us to talk about our relationship? Or for I feel we're missing a beat and I'd like to straighten that out because I value our relationship. So that is in a personal relationship. When it comes to work, a professional relationship, are you feeling overworked? Are you taking on too much? Are you a people's pleaser? Do you not have boundaries at work and do you not know how to say no? And those things will add stress because whoever asks you, particularly if it's a superior, I know you can hear the hardy-dar being very enthusiastic about something outside my window, but have a boundary. And sometimes that requires you to look at your job description and say, my job description is to do X, Y, and Z, and my key performance outcomes are these. So therefore, all this other stuff that you want to pile on me, I can't take that on and meet the requirements of my job description and produce the key performance outcomes. So again, it means having a difficult conversation with your superior. If it's a colleague who's just saying, oh, please, Lee, won't you just help me out with that? Or, oh, Lee, I know you're good at this, so please, won't you just do that? There comes a point where you say yes to the person, but no to the request. Where you say, you know what, I would love to help you, but I am so swamped at the moment, I simply can't. So why don't you ask and make a suggestion? Or you can say, if it will hold till next week, I may have a gap to help you. So you're not just saying, yes, okay, put it on my desk and I'll get to it. And meanwhile, you know in your heart that you are digging yourself deeper into a hole. And you know what they say, when you're in a hole, stop digging. So be realistic about what you can achieve. Be realistic about your priorities. Don't let other people's priorities usurp your priorities. You need to have a clear objective about what your priorities are, what is important to you, and of course what your personal values are. And if that professional or occupational stress is because you are finding you're having to work late, you're having to bring work home, and your family life is taking strain. And one of your personal values is that my family is important, and when I come home, I want to be fully present for them. I want to know what's happened in my wife's day, my partner's day. I want to know what's happened in the children's day. I want to know how the dog is doing after his or her surgery, etc. Then you need to say to yourself, and this is a hard question sometimes to ask yourself, is, am I not competent enough to fulfill this position and complete the tasks that I'm given, or am I just being overloaded? And of course, if I'm being overloaded because the company wants me to do two people's jobs so they can save a salary, well, again, you have to have that tough conversation. So don't overcommit. Have your boundaries and say, you know what, now is not a good time. I cannot have that discussion now. I cannot help you with whatever it is the person needs help on. So don't be a people's pleaser. Don't be afraid to say no, because people will always take advantage of the willing horse. And as I've often used the example of referring back to my horse riding days, if you allow a horse to chuck you off, it always will. If you allow a horse to mess with you, it always will. It's just what they do. So if you take the reins and say, you know what, actually I'm in charge and I will tell you when we trot and when we canter and when we gallop and when you stop, the horse generally says, oh, okay, fine, that's fine. I now get it. And you have established the hierarchy, the authority. So you need to know that if you don't want to be the doormat, you have to get up off the floor and you have to say no. And that is something, the strength you would have to find in yourself and say, I'm either going to sink and have a nervous breakdown or a burnout, or I am going to start putting boundaries in place. Listeners, they say ships don't sink because of the water that's around them. They sink because of the water that gets into them. And if you allow all these things, everybody's problems, everybody's issues, to get into you, it will sink you. You have to keep them outside of yourself, around you. Be empathetic, be supportive, but don't take it over. So those are some of the things that of course help with the effective handling of stress. And yes, we also have to look at our habits. Do you take time out? And listeners, you all know my hobby horse. Time out does not mean let me lounge on the couch with the remote. Time out, particularly when you're stressed, is going for a nice long walk, being in nature. Go and play a sport, go and play pickleball or padel or whatever these new things are that are out there. Or, as I say, just go for a nice walk, start running, join a gym, whatever it is, get out there. On the weekends, go for a nice hike with your family. And do things that take you out of your environment and out of yourself. Because when we are stressed, when we are worried about something, that issue becomes like the hamster on that wheel. It goes round and round and round in your head. And it takes on a life of its own. And it takes over your every waking moment and your not waking moment, because it affects your sleep and your quality of rest. So when you feel stressed, first ask yourself, is this stress of my making? Do I have control? Because we feel most stressed when we feel we don't have control over the situation. So if you have control over the situation, if you can say no, if you can have that conversation with whoever you need to have it with, if you can change your habits and say, you know what, when I get home, I'm going to put on some comfortable clothes, a pair of walking shoes, and I'm going to just walk around the neighborhood and admire the gardens or criticize the gardens or whatever it is. Take the dog for a walk. The dog would certainly love it and love you for it. Or, as I say, play some sort of sport. Meditate. Teach yourself to be able to sit for 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be an hour. Nobody here is trying to compete with the monks who can sit for hour upon hour upon hour in total self-control and go inward. That takes a lot of practice, but I meditate. And yes, it's difficult when you start, and I just meditate for 15 minutes, and it really is my happy place, and it really grounds you for the day. And meditating is about being quiet. It's about listening to your inner voice. We all have an inner voice, that gut feel, that instinct, call it what you want, your inner voice that guides you, that we ignore at our peril. And how often have we all had the occasion to say, oh, I knew I shouldn't have done it, or oh, I knew I should have done it, and I ignored that little prompt, that little inner voice that gave me the answer, and I chose to ignore it. So, firstly, prioritize your daily activities. What is important to you? What are my personal values? Do I need to have a conversation with someone? My boss, a colleague, my partner, or whoever? Is that going to alleviate the situation, and will it take the situation forward? So recognize the signs in your body, the stress, the increased anxiety. Regular exercise. It has been scientifically proven that exercise is one of the best stress relievers you can possibly want. Better than medication. Not that I'm saying there's not a place for medication. So, regular exercise. Try relaxing activities like, as I say, meditation, yoga, going for a walk, taking the day. Yes, I know it's winter, listeners. It is dark early. But if you're in a relatively safe area, or take your partner with you, and if your dog is of a good size, you should be fine. Set goals and set priorities so you know what you're working towards, and you have your priorities, and that will give you a feeling of, I'm in control. Have people, or at least one person who can support you, who you can talk to, who will just be a sounding board, who you can feel, I can just unburden. I can just tell you what a terrible day I had and what's bothering me. And there may or may not be some sage advice from that person, but it is someone to confide in. I always caution my clients to say, as much as we talk to friends, remember, friends are inclined with the best intention in the world to tell you what you want to hear. Yes, you are right, and so is wrong, and you must just go and sort them out. And that may not always be the best way forward. So whilst you have a confidant, remember at the back of your mind that they may be telling you what you want to hear. And so talking to a professional is always a good idea. So listeners, handling stress effectively really means getting clear daily objectives. Prioritize what's important to you, not to anyone else. One of the things we use for business is the difference between important and urgent. If it's important, it generally brings you closer to your goal. If it's urgent, it's generally someone else who wants you to do something to bring them closer to their goal. And there you have to practice the ability or the skill to say yes to the person, but no to the request. I would love to help you. I would love to assist you, but I'm not the right person. I don't have the skills or the knowledge. Or I'm really so busy now. But if it can wait till next week, I may have a gap to help you. Or why don't you ask Jeremy? He's quite good at that sort of thing, and he may just be the person you are looking for. So we haven't just dismissed this person, say, no, you know, and you come across as just generally unhelpful and difficult. You have said, I'd love to help you, but. And that way, you don't feel bad. The other person says, well, I've got a couple of suggestions here, and you have set a boundary. Remember, boundaries are important. What am I prepared to do and what am I not prepared to do? How much can I take on? And as I say, listeners, if it means looking at your job description, if this is a professional issue, then you need to also say to whoever is piling all this on you, say, you know, let's just look at my job description. I am expected to do the following. My KPIs are the following. And if I don't meet them, then you give your employer a legitimate cause to have some sort of performance assessment, which could be negative. And the fact that they are responsible for you not doing that, they will not take into account. So rather stop it at the beginning before it becomes overwhelming and the problem is running away and you're feeling out of control. Look at your habits. What are your habits when you get home from work? Whether this is a work or a relationship stress situation, what do? Do you give your partner the time of day, or do you just plonk down, grab the remote and say, what's for dinner? Or do you say, hi, let's go and sit outside, whether it's with a cup of tea, or if you enjoy a glass of wine or a beer, and say, tell me, how is your day? And last week you mentioned this, how is that going? Show interest, and you create this space, you create the opportunity for your partner then to say, yeah, but what about you? How is your day? I know you're battling with this project or that issue, and how's that going? Don't take it over. Remember, we've spoken about this. Don't take it over, but rather say, so how are you going to handle that? And be a sounding board. And yes, you can obviously put alternatives forward, but don't step in and say, I know that garage that's in such a mess has been, you know, the bane of your life, and I will make sure that it gets sorted out over the weekend. Make it a team project and say, why don't you and I put some time aside and sort the spare room, the garage, the grocery cupboard, whatever it is out. So the bottom line here is recognize the source of the stress. Does it require a conversation? Does it require putting a boundary in place? Does it require me to change my habits, as in not being a people's pleaser, as in not overcommitting, as in going for some fresh air, spending more time in nature, because it does reset us. As you listeners know, that I'm a runner, and when I come in from a run, I always feel I can take on the world. And excuse my expression, but I always say I look like shit, but I feel like $1 million. And that is what exercise does, or just getting out in nature and saying, you know what, it's given me perspective. And just on a personal note, either the beginning of this year or end of last year, I think it was the end of last year, my son took his son, my son and grandson, went on they live in Cape Town, and they went on I want to call it a whitewater rafting week down the Orange River, not the Orange River, the Fish River, and with a guide, of course, and a couple of other people. And as he said, Mom, you know, there was no connectivity, so there's no cell phone, there is no TV, there's nothing. You are just on the water with his son, and in the evening they sat around the braai, they camped, they chatted, and he said when he came back just from that week of being totally immersed in nature with no connection to the outside world, no electronic device, said it totally reset his priorities. And he is a young man who works from 6 in the morning till 7 at night, so his days are very busy and very demanding. But he said this is now something that's going to happen at least twice a year. And he just felt so recharged and could reset his priorities coming back from that. So I'm not saying we're all going to go whitewater rafting, but what I am saying is get out there, switch off your electronic devices, switch off the TV, go and be in nature, go to your local, go to the beach. We've got beaches, beautiful beaches. Go to the botanical gardens in Durban that are really lovely and wonderful. Take a picnic and just go and sit and watch the wildlife. But if it's something that's totally out of your control, then you have to say, you know what, I am going to let it be. And whilst that is very difficult, you have to reprogram your mind and say, I have zero control over this situation, like the petrol price or the inflation rate. And I'm going to let it be, and I'm going to just allow it to play out the way it is going to play out. And I'm not going to get stressed about it, because that would probably make it worse and not better. So I hope that was helpful. If not, please feel free to contact me on 082 330 2439, and I would be happy to do a one-on-one with you. But listeners, we're all under stress, but how we handle it is so important. And it comes down to our priorities and our self-discipline to say, I am not taking that on. And to change our habits so that they support and strengthen us and not weaken us. And as I say, and I reiterate, the things you cannot control, let them go, because you cannot control them. I wish you a very, very happy Thursday, a great weekend, and please let us have your requests. And with that, I say goodbye for today.
The radio station you can't live without. This is your radio.
This is South Coast Radio.